Good morning, everyone. Wow. Wowie, wow, wow, wow. What an amazing day to be in the market. Look behind me. Look at that sky. I would say not a cloud in it, but barely a cloud in it. It's going to be 87, from what I understand today. So a beautiful day to get out. Come out and check out Eastern Market. Go for a bike ride. And a beautiful day to talk murals in the market. Welcome to Murals Live. Every Saturday we go live at 11 a.m. And we bring you the inside on a different artist, and we try to give you a little insight into the murals that they've done over the previous years in Murals in the Market. And also to let you know that we do give tours. Okay, so not only can you tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. and talk to the artist, but you can also come out here and go on an hour-and-a-half long walking tour or a 2-hour long e-bike tour. Both of those are available through ridedetroit.com, or you can stop by Electric Avenue Bikes. Talk to me in person. Number there is 313-752-1186. By all means, I would love to come hang out with you, talk about more murals. And on those tours, on the walking tour, you see about 80% of the murals. And on the e-bike tour, you get to see all of them. The reason for that is a couple of those are slightly outside the Eastern Market footprint. So when you're on an e-bike, you can definitely get to those. I was annoyed by my hair being behind my ear like that. That looks, much better. Much better. So, with that being said, every week before we get into the artist, who this week is Ann Lewis, and I am crazy excited about. Talked to her on the phone last night. She is not only an amazing artist, but has her finger on the pulse of everything really going on politically, and we'll get into that. And I cannot be more excited. But before we get into that, I got to thank Joey Solomon for last week. One of the coolest dudes around. Local guy. You can definitely check his art around on all the Bobcat Bonnies. You can come down here and check his art as well down as part of Murals in the Market, or you can look him up on Instagram. And I also want to give a shout out to Phil Simpson. Phil created an amazing mural for Black Lives Matter over on John R. and 8 Mile, a little George Floyd memorial. Please go check it out. Phil, once again, was on a couple weeks ago. All of the stuff that we have, unfortunately, except for Joey, something happened technically that you can't watch his. But you can actually go back and watch all the previous ones. You can see Kevin Lido, Kevin Lyons, Rec Williams, Yolanda Williams, Sidney James, all of those in our archive. All right. You can also come and check me out. I'm actually live at the mural. Okay, so if you want to come down, I am on the corner of Orleans and Winder, right off of the DeQuinder Cut, if you can see right there. You are more than welcome to hang out. I would love to have the company. And I tell you what, if you come by right now and hang out with me for a little while, I will make sure you get something free. I don't know what that may be. I have some really dope denial prints that he gave me to get out to the public that I have a few left. Come see me. I'll make sure you get one of those. I also got some other really cool Black Lives Matter stuff that Denial made on top of that I have to give away as well. So if you come check me out live, I will make sure that you get some of that. If you have any questions during the live, please send them to me, and I will try my best to get those answered for you via email or in a future show. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to scroll through here and see who's in here and who has joined me today. And I see that Ann is indeed here. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and invite her into our...
What up? Hi, can you hear me?
I'm going to have to turn my speaker off because I think it's interfering with my sound because I'm not hearing you. Hang on one second. But say hello to everybody, man.
What's up?
There we go. Much better. I can hear you now. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us on a Saturday morning. I know you're a busy person with all your projects that you have going on, so thank you once again for coming to hang out with us. Lost my sound again. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to show everybody. You know, you can hear me while I'm working on my sound. And can you talk to people about how you maybe got started in art? Because I like to start at the very beginning before we even get to murals.
Sure, sure. I went to the University of Wisconsin and I started as an engineer and realized that there was no way in hell I was an engineer. And because of that, I took an art class to like fill one of my class loads that I was failing. And it was like this eureka moment of like, oh, wow, like I can be myself here. I can do what I want to do. I can be, you know, I can have these divergent thoughts and be able to create what I want to create. So from that very first class, it was, you know, I knew I was an artist and spent the next 4 years in school focusing on art, and then moved to New York and didn't really think there was a career in art. So I was doing other stuff. And then because of the political climate at the time, this was like 2008, 9, George Bush was obviously in Iraq and Afghanistan and killing people and torturing people. And so this was before Facebook and before people were, you know, using the online platforms to really talk about their not sort of just now muralist and an installation artist. Obviously, I'm an activist artist from the very beginning. And so every work that I make has years, yes, decade or more plus. Yeah, you know.
Hey, Ann?
Yeah.
We're kind of having some technical difficulties on your end. Our connection might be a little off.
Okay.
Trying to figure out how we can fix your end because you're blurring on my. You're dipping in and out. So let me.
Why don't I
here.
move to a different place in the house? Maybe that'll be better. I can go
works.
outside. Is this better? How about now? Can you hear me? Let's see. How's this? Can you hear me now?
That's how you know we're doing. No studio out of trying to make.
Yeah, now I can't hear you.
Okay. Why don't
I'm gonna get out and you add me back in, okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, everybody. We're gonna get this thing right. Don't worry about it. Give me 1 second. We're gonna re-add and I promise one of these days we'll have a studio for a massive team.
How's this? Can you guys hear me now?
Much better.
All right, cool. Good.
Much better. Still a little bit, but I think we're doing better. Still choppy? Okay.
Yeah, still choppy?
Got a little bit of a delay. We'll work through that.
Sounds good.
All right. So I think where we left off is before you were getting caught, you had got to know and you were just learning, coming into yourself.
Yeah, so, you know, street art was just the tool in which I used to be able to amplify my concerns with the world we were living in. And that sort of just blossomed into a career. Street art was obviously like, you know, had been kicking off for a few years, but it really took off in New York at that point. And so I was sort of in the right place at the right time. And yeah, had just, you know, I was there for 13 years and my partner and I moved here to Detroit about 3 years ago. He had a job offer in Ann Arbor. And so we came to Detroit. Mostly because I love Rula and Jesse, and they were super awesome and welcoming when we came to visit. And Ann Arbor just wasn't our vibe, so we were super stoked to be in Detroit. And yeah, we've been here for the last 3 years.
Yeah, we talked today how when you moved here, you moved here, but you said if I'm gonna, I have to, as opposed to Ann Arbor, because I mean Detroit. For me, it feels like it welcomes people in that are like, and where we come from. And Ann Arbor's a little more collegey.
Yeah, yeah. Ann Arbor's a total college town, and if you want that world, that's where you go. But I went to Madison, which is basically a carbon copy of Ann Arbor. It's very similar. So yeah, I was not interested in sort of making that shift from New York to Ann Arbor. And I've been to Detroit several times in the past before we considered moving here. And, you know, had loved all the experiences I'd had. And, you know, Jesse and Rilla had connected me to folks here before. And it was just a really, it was a very easy decision.
Okay, so you end up with market. I mean, Rula and Jesse, station, or was it just something you get part of the project?
How did I get part of Murals in the Market?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, you're cutting out a little bit too, so I might just have to just ask the question back to you. Yeah, you know, I'd been here for a couple of years before they asked me to be a part of it. I had volunteered, I think, the year before, and you know, was really, you know, their community is just so strong and so beautiful, and just being able to volunteer and be a part of that was a beautiful experience for me. So the next year they asked if I wanted to participate, and you know, I think I spent some time really trying to figure out like, what did I want to put on this wall? It was the 2018 you know, midterm election coming up, you know, Murals in the Markets, you know, late summer, early fall. And so the election was really on a lot of people's minds after Trump had been elected. And so I really wanted to figure out like how I could use my platform to engage voters, engage people to show up and like participate in our democracy, because as we know, when we don't participate, crazy things happen. And so, you know, it was just, this was my opportunity to try to, you know, engage people to you know, come into the fold and get registered to vote. So I partnered with the ACLU, an organization in New York called Four Freedoms, and another local organization called Engage. And we registered folks to vote at the wall. So you'll see on the wall, every star there along the bottom represents somebody that we registered to vote. And so, you know, we were just trying to like, obviously use the Mural Festival as an opportunity to get folks engaged in the voting process.
That is, so when you were here, were there any other that you met that you were inspired by?
Hang on one second. I'm really having a hard time hearing you, so I'm going to step outside and see if I can get a better reception.
Okay. And while
sorry, things are, I don't know what's going on with our phones today. Sorry, did you ask me about other artists that I was inspired by?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much time we got?
We got today.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was super beautiful to just see everybody sort of, how everybody creates differently was really, that's what I love about artists, is like we can all be artists or street artists or muralists, and we all have super different approaches and different stories we want to tell. And so, yeah, I was watching so many different folks come through. You know, Sydney James' work was really stunning and powerful. I think the stories that she tells within her work is something that, you know, it really needs to be reckoned with. I also, Ellen Rutt's work really is so different than mine, and I don't really understand how she makes her work, because it's so like based on her emotions in the moment, and I think that's a really vulnerable way to make work, and I think that's really worth considering and acknowledging, because that's just a really
very personal process. And my work is very much about like the public and, you know, outer communities and like various different groups. And so I tend to work around like public discussions, and hers is just very personal and very private, even though she makes it in the public space. And so I really enjoy like seeing her process, because it's like it couldn't be any different than mine. Like I go to a wall, I know what it looks like, I know the color schemes, I have everything figured out before I get there, and her work is like the exact opposite. And so, you know, when you watch other artists work, you're just like, how do they do what they do? And she's one of those people that I'm always just like, what? Cool, okay. It's just very different.
Nah, she's awesome, and the work that she's done is so like, abstract and cool that you really see so much different stuff every time you see it. Every time I walk through the alley and look at some of her work, I always see a different part of what she does. And speaking of like kind of different parts, you know, murals is just one facet of what you do. You really are focusing more, you said, a little bit more on your installation work that you're doing these days. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of so when I'm not outside making public work, I'm focusing on installation work for interior spaces, and I'm really trying to use like the experiential structure of a gallery or whatever kind of space I'm using to help create memories and experiences that are rooted in like in deep emotion, but around really intense issues. So I'll do, I did an installation in 2016 that documented every single police related death on toe tags. So I literally studied every single death throughout the entire year, and wrote each person's experience on a toe tag and then hung them from the ceiling. And that piece grew by about three tags a day, or three deaths a day. And so that was a really, you know, that was something about like processing those deaths through my hand and through the experience of, you know, creating their stories for everybody. So you can look at that installation as like a, you can look at each individual tag and you can see somebody's story, or you can look at the whole issue and be like, okay, this is 1,100 people in 1 year. Like, what does that, you know, what does 1,100 deaths look like? And when you see it, you know, we hear about statistics and we see numbers on websites and all that, and then you see that in real life and you're like, 1,100 people is a lot of people, right? And so I try to use the space within a gallery to envelop people into these stories and get them to have experiences that are profound enough that they leave changed, and they leave more inspired to work for social change, which is entirely what my work's about.
And your work is vast. It's not just in, you know, murals. And I mean, we can talk about some of the side projects, because I joked earlier about you being busier than me, but let's talk about some of your projects that you have going on that are outside of art that touch, you know, social awareness. You know,
Sure.
let's talk about the book club to begin.
Man, I wish I was in my studio now, because I have the book right next to me. Yeah, so I host a book club called the Interfem Book Club. So it's an intersectional feminist focus. So we focus on reading works by women of color, women of different abilities. You know, we're really trying to have a thorough conversation and reflection on what it is to be in America right now for, you know, various different experiences. So anyone from Soraya Chamali to Bell Hooks to Morgan Jerkins, you know, Ibram X Kendi, we're getting into him next, you know, so we're just always trying to just, you know, it's about learning. So in my Instagram page, so you can go there and see what we're reading, and if you want to join us, you can hit me with a DM and I can, you know, get you linked in with the next book we're reading, and sort of, you know, the structure and stuff. But we're always welcoming and want more people to join us. So if you're into it, yeah, hit me up. But yeah, the book club is one thing. It's kind of interesting. I'm kind of expanding my practice as an artist to doing a lot of social work or social practice work. So the book club is part of that, but also we have I do a weekly talk called the Anti-Racism Resource Lab every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. There's a link in my bio for that with several other activists. And we sit there and we break down different topics each week around anti-racism and sort of like how do people show up for this movement that maybe haven't experienced the racism that Black and brown folks in this country do, and sort of like help people navigate through giving resources that have been created by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, you know. So it's not so much that we're saying we're experts, because we're definitely not, but we do research and we do get resources to folks that, you know, want to learn more about specific topics. Last week was defunding the police. This week we'll be speaking about how capitalism and racism are, you know, intertwined, and sort of how do you show up as an anti-racist and still live in a capitalist society, because capitalism is literally a tool for racism and vice versa. So that's sort of the things that we're exploring. You know, we realize that Black and brown folks have been doing this work and getting white people resources and telling them what to read and answering their questions for far too long. And it's the anti-racism work that white folks need to do does not belong on the shoulders of Black and brown people. It belongs on our shoulders. So what we're doing is trying to alleviate some of that burden and you know, get people more involved and stay motivated. You know, I think these movements have a lot of power at the beginning, and then it's very difficult to sustain people's participation. And so this talk is just really about like keeping people motivated and willing to, you know, show up and do the work and be present for the people who need it right now.
That is amazing. And this has been going on for a year. This isn't new. So even before everything was going on, you were addressing issues.
Well, the Interfem Book Club's been around for about a year, but the Anti-Racism Resource Lab, we just kicked off like 6 or 8 weeks ago, maybe 7. Maybe we've done 7. I think it's 7. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's newish,
really,
for sure.
So that came more from a need for the immediate what was going down.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, I had so many people, you know, asking me, what do I do? What should I say? And so I reached out to a couple of folks and I was like, hey, do you guys feel like we need to answer some questions? So we decided to do it and see how many people needed those conversations. And a lot of people showed up, you know. And so, you know, we've just continued to do them. And if it comes to a point where, you know, there's no need or there's no demand, there will always be a need, let me put it that way. But if the demand seems to dwindle, you know, we'll keep doing it until people don't find it helpful.
That is incredible. So have you ever had any like extreme or memorable responses to your art? Because I mean, each one has such a message. Have you ever just gotten back with how they've really been changed by it?
Well, I mean, you know, a couple of the people who registered to vote like came up to me and were like, was on the wall for them. And somebody was like, can I do the star? You know, I think people really want to be involved, especially with street art and murals. You know, people really want to participate, especially right now. So that felt really good. It was just like connecting with somebody that, you know, we had enabled them to participate in our democracy. And that was really just beautiful to be. As a muralist, it's really easy to like put your work out in the world and then like, you know, you don't know how people are responding to it. You're not present to see people's experience with it. But that to me was, you know, an instance where I was able to literally connect with somebody whose life had been changed by the mural, which, you know, I mean, they could have registered to vote on their own, but we made it easy and just, you know, got it done then and there.
Have you ever run into any obstacles, you know, when with your art being so based in message? Have you run into any obstacles?
Oh, always. Yeah. I mean, there's always people that don't like my work. I mean, if you're going to create in the public space, people are going to either, like it or dislike it. And oftentimes the people who dislike it are the ones who are most vocal, right? Um, yeah. I mean, my political work, I get all kinds of pushback, but I think as we're watching now, the people who are pushing back on this kind of work are saying a lot about who they are as people.
Right.
And so, you take everything they say with a grain of salt, and you really can't you can't get too worked up about it. I had someone gave me some great advice a couple of years ago, and they said, don't give your praisers any attention, and don't give the people who, dislike your work any attention. Like, neither of them matter. What matters is the work that you create and making sure that it comes from here, from your heart. And I think from that point forward, I was kind of like, okay, I've had trolls, like, I've had all kinds of like online bullying happen, and all that sort of stuff is just like kind of part and parcel for being a woman street artist. First of all, from New York, where it's a big boys club, so there was a lot of pushback because I was out about the issues that were happening there. So I got a lot of pushback there, but also just from the political work, so you can't take people's hatred seriously, because you can take it seriously, but you can't you can't take it personally. So I think I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah, you touched on it briefly about being a woman in this world, in this field. I mean,
Yeah.
talk to me about that. Every time I do one of these, there's a different thing that I never think about because I'm on the inside. So I'm always hanging out with women who do art, and it doesn't faze me. But talk to me about being a woman and kind of not a male dominated, but definitely probably a world filled with males.
Oh, it's definitely, the street art mural world is definitely male dominated. I guess, it's a boys club. So it tends to be a lot of like, if you'll see like the mural festivals, you can see that it's mostly male dominated. It's mostly white male dominated. And so, there's obviously that intersection of race and gender that is problematic in most industries in our world, or at least in our country. So, like those are just kind of like part and parcel for being a woman. But I think the thing that gets me the most being like a woman muralist or street artist is the comments. When you're on a wall, maybe not this one because I was so isolated from everybody because there's that huge parking lot, but like when you're on a sidewalk and you're painting a mural, and like it's just like constant comments of like sexist comments or misogynist comments, or people like hitting on you or saying like, oh my God, you did that, like men not believing that women can paint. It's just the societal responses to public art are often laced with like misogyny just because you're a woman, just because you're there. So those kind of things are that's really more what gets me than like the systemic probably biases that are in place. Obviously that's not the case in murals in the market in any way, but other programs that I've worked with, you just like, you're one woman and I'm one woman in a group of like 10 people, and I'm the only woman, and then I'm white, and then everybody else is, it's just like there's a lot of layers that are still present in terms of like just lack of diversity and lack of having like real conversations from different perspectives. So yeah, there's a lot. I could unpack this for days.
Oh, that's why we're here, because I want to know how we change that. I mean, how do we address such a situation? How do we change the status quo?
Well, it's easy, like white artists have to start demanding that the group shows that they're in, or the organizations that they're working with, are working with diverse sets of artists, right? I just posted that I'm now going forward with every gallery show I'm in. I'm asking what the racial and gender makeups are of the group. Is this a diverse group? Do I want to be a part of the show, or am I the token woman and there's no other representation? Like there needs to be like perspectives from all sides especially in the type of shows that I'm in, or which are obviously political. So if you're doing a political show and you only have white folks in the show, you got problems. So yeah, so I think as artists, we have to use our power and our whatever cultural capital we have to demand that the people who are organizing do better. And if they don't, then maybe you don't show with them, or maybe you don't, do the project. And it's hard, especially right now during COVID, to like potentially turn down work, but like where for me it's like that's what my work is based on. So if I'm not, sorry, one second.
That's right. Art.
So if this is what my work is about, and I'm not showing up like and doing the work in my own world, in my own business, then what's the point? So for me it's really about like, yeah, you have to hold people accountable, and you have to be willing to walk away.
I'm happy to hear you say that, because I often say, and I get in trouble, I say, Black people we can yell all day, but saying the same thing, the world's not going to change. And you got to hear it from yourselves. And that's awesome that you're willing to take that time and talk to people of America and say, this is what the responsibility is of white America.
Most definitely. I mean, and it can't just happen for a couple of weeks. This has to be a consistent, perpetual awakening and willingness to continue to grow. I think this kind of growth is really hard for white folks because it's not something that we have been doing, and we don't have a practice with it. I kind of liken it to working out. Like if you've not been working out for a really long time and then you hit the gym and you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. It's like everybody going to the gym January 1st, and then by the 20th, like nobody's there. Like you have to continue, you have to make a commitment, and it has to be a sustained commitment. And this is a marathon, so people need to like take breaks, and they need to rest, and they need to self-care, and they need to do these things so that they can continue to show up. And so it's not just like you can't just read a couple books and be done. This is like perpetual work. So you have to continuously challenge yourself and see like, okay, how can I continue to show up? And I think with the demanding, diversity in these art spaces is one that I can actually do successfully.
So if there were any younger artists out there right now that are thinking about getting into this, what advice would you give them?
Take some small business classes and learn how to manage a business. Like my art classes, my art school did not teach me one thing about running a small business. And that's exactly what being an artist is. So learn QuickBooks, learn the ropes, learn how to like market yourself, understand what all of those things are so that you can actually have a successful career. Because trying to like retroactively fit that into your business plan is it's difficult. So yeah, I think it's really about just like, but also, so find what you're good at and what you love doing, but figure out a way to know how to run the business side of things. I think artists love to like live in our minds, and we're daydreamers, and we love to challenge status quo and consider new ways of thinking and that sort of thing. But if you can't like figure out how to financially sustain yourself with it, it's going to be a really hard career. It'll end up being a hobby versus a job. So I think it's just, you got to do that hard work, and that's tough. And you also have to really learn how to talk about your work. You have to really be willing to like be comfortable explaining yourself, and your artist statement and your bio and all those things really need to be honed so that people understand exactly where you're coming from. And that's also like a lot of artists just don't want to do that. We just want to make work all day. But having a dedicated like focus to the business side of things is where you'll be able to then do the bigger projects.
Yeah, we often talk about street art versus commissioned art. Do you think that going to school is beneficial or necessary?
Um, I know there's a lot of really amazing self-taught artists out there. So I don't think it's necessary. I think a lot of, school is not necessary, but I also think like, had I not gone to art school, I think I wouldn't have the foundations that I needed. Just like understanding composition and color theory and those sorts of things that are like really important to get right if you're gonna, make it a career. So whether you're self-taught and you do that work, or you go to a school and you have a professor that teaches you that, I think really making sure you have your foundations down, and continuously learning, right? Teaching yourself new tools and learning about, new materials, and really finding what like clicks for you is the most important part of school. And the thing about school, it's great, is like they force you to take all these different types of classes. So you get a really strong, cross section of experiences, and, understandings of new mediums and that sort of thing, which I found really helpful. I focused on graphic design, and then I took a furniture class like my last year, and like the three-dimensional building of furniture was like, why haven't I been doing this the entire time? So, it's just like, whether you're teaching yourself or you're learning through school, I think continuously trying new things is a really important way to develop your skills as an artist and be as versatile as you can be. There's going to be certain types of work that like you're going to do for money, and there's going to be certain types of work that you do for the love of it. And if you have a lot of skills, you can really use all of those to cover your financial basis as well as your creative basis.
Awesome. So we're going to start wrapping this up, and I'm going to ask you, everybody wants to know, do you have a favorite piece that you've done that sticks out?
Favorite.
Or maybe one you're most proud of. Let's say that.
Well, the end counting piece, the toe tag piece, I think was probably the most intense piece that I've done. That kind of kicked my creative ass for a couple of years. I didn't really make anything after that for a while. I'm very proud of that because of the time I spent witnessing. But I think the piece that I love the most isn't the most beautiful visually of any of my work, but I did a mural in Boston called See Her in 2017. It was with an organization called Now and There, and they commissioned me to do a mural whatever I wanted to do. And we ended up partnering with an organization called Community Resources for Justice in Boston. And what they do is they help women who are transitioning out of incarceration back into the real world. So they, teach them how to write their resumes and, sort of get all their ducks in a line before they can, get a job and kind of get housing and get back into the world. And so we did a creative project, sort of like future self visions with them with collaging. And we just, we really worked with the ladies to kind of see like where they are now, where they want to be. And so through their art, I was able to, I used their art as inspiration for the mural. And, we did a 4-story mural with one of their faces on it. And one of like, a lot of the talk that they talked about was about like taking the right steps and making good decisions and making good choices. And so that was integrated into the wall as well. And so it was just for me, it was like the first community engagement project that I really, I did in a way that I felt was beneficial. I think community engagement can really be, a Band-Aid. But that to me, it built like long-lasting relationships and friendships that I just don't think I ever would have had if I hadn't been able to participate in that. And so, yeah, that mural just gave me a lot of hope, and it just was it was a really awesome opportunity to amplify, incarcerated or formerly incarcerated women. When we talk about mass incarceration, it's often about men, and the what was great about that is one of the state senators from Massachusetts was there. Her name is Sonia Chang Diaz, and she introduced legislation later that year in the Massachusetts Senate that was very similar to the Dignity for Incarcerated Women's Act that got passed in the actual Congress a couple of years later. But because she met a bunch of these ladies and they were able to tell her their stories, she proposed a bunch of legislation that helped make it easier for women who were incarcerated in Massachusetts to be closer to their kids, to have more time on the phone with their kids, to actually have more physical one-on-one time with their children, and various other things. So it was I think not only was it beautiful for me, but it also helped to amplify the voices and the stories of people that are often ignored and forgotten. And somehow we got it into the hands of people who could actually execute legislative change. So that was a really, that's where I'm like, art can change the world if we really just do it right. And I have to give a lot of credit to Kate Gilbert, the woman who runs Now and There. She really helped connect me to everybody in that space so that we could be effective and helpful. So I think that's my favorite piece, just because of the social good that came from it versus the physical mural.
I love what you just said. Art can change the world if we really do it right. I am gonna keep that in my mind I can't even tell you. This is amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
When I come here and I say that the majority of Anne's art is politically driven, this just puts the capper on that in a nutshell. It is, everything you are doing is amazing. Can we just rehash where everybody can find you about the lab? Because that's amazing. Tell them where to find the lab, the book club, all that stuff.
Sure. So if everybody just goes to my Instagram handle, you can go in my bio and you'll find the link to the Interfem Book Club. And if you go into the link tree, you'll get my website. You'll get a bunch of links to Next Gen America, which will help you register to vote. See if you need to register, get you absentee ballot, various different things there. And then the Anti-Racist Resource Lab also has a link there. And you can register for our next talk, which is next Tuesday at 8. And you can also find all of those talks are on YouTube, and there'll be a link in my bio for that as well, probably in the next 10 minutes, because I hadn't put it in there yet.
Awesome. And I will commit to anything that I can do to help the movement. If you think that we can do a bike ride together.
Oh, I would love that.
Anything that will raise awareness for the movement, I am 100% invested in that. So we'll talk after this.
Yes, please.
Is there anywhere that people can see some of your current work locally?
Locally, not really. I mean, the mural you're standing in front of is the one and only in Detroit. I've got one up in Lansing that just went up a couple of weeks ago. But aside from that, everything's, online right now.
So you guys heard that. This is the one and only in Detroit. Every week I say this. That means hire this artist to come do some amazing art on or in your space. Once again, everybody, Ann Lewis, thank you so much for coming on. I'll get a hold of you soon. We'll plan that bike ride.
That sounds amazing, Jason. Thave you so much for having me.
Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy. Bye.
Wow, man. And I'm sorry I sound like a kid when I keep saying stuff like wow. But every week I get my mind blown by a different artist. I say that I have the best job in the world. I get to ride bikes and show people Detroit. And not only do I get to show people Detroit, but I get to show them amazing art like this. And I get to introduce them to amazing people like Ann Lewis. If you would like to book a tour, walking or e-bike, please go to ridedetroit.com. Come out, hang out with me so we can talk about all the amazing stories. Hey, maybe if you're lucky, I get one of these artists to come out and meet you out here. All right? So once again, ridedetroit.com, book your tour. If you would like to support these artists in other ways, go to muralsinthemarket.com or onetimesrun.com. buy a print, buy something over there, help these artists out during this tough time of COVID. A lot of work is getting lost. So go ahead and support your artists and look out for the book club and the resource lab, guys. See you next week.